welcome to the Utah Puck Report. I'm your host, Jay Stevens. We're just going to talk about hockey. We've got so much stuff going on. I had to bring in one of my good friends, Mason Mannek, because at some point I'm going to need actual hockey expertise and experience. So, Mason, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again. I'm excited. It was fun last time, so I'm excited to keep it going.
Yeah, we got a lot of positive feedback from last time. Everybody liked the
Good.
jersey too.
Yeah.
So I put the Nick Archer jersey back on, and colors are right now. You can see the Yeti.
Yeah, it looks clean. I love the colors. Colors are my
Yeah, I do
favorite.
too. I don't know if it's going to be Yeti. I imagine it's going to be Yeti. But for all the people that are like, "Oh, it's a fake contest. It was always going to be Yeti." I can tell you that's not the case. I was in a lot of those meetings at the beginning, and it's been a legit contest. And I haven't been in the meetings since, but I can tell you that at the beginning it was all legit, and Yeti was kind of the overwhelming favorite, especially for
Yeah.
the younger guys. Did we talk about this last week? Did you have a favorite?
Yeah, I said I wasn't even opposed to like keeping it to what it was
Oh,
my
right.
my unpopular opinion. But
I don't
um
think it's unpopular anymore. I think a lot of people would agree with you.
yeah, maybe. I know like when Vegas came in and Seattle, maybe I said this last time, but like their names at first I was kind of like the Kraken, really? Like the Golden Knights, like an NHL team?
Yeah.
But then like 6 months in, you're like, oh, it's perfect. Like so I think
Well,
that's kind of
it's
what's happened to the hockey club with me.
it's one of those things like I don't, it's we joke about it with fire department all the time. We say the only thing firefighters hate is change and the way
Mm.
things are.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of fans are that way too, and they're going to complain about everything. I didn't love Utah Hockey Club at first. I thought it, and I went back, I did the research. I understand that is a traditional hockey name. If you go back, that's what they all used to be, Montreal Hockey
Yeah.
Club or Hub Club D Montreal or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's the tradition, there's the heritage with that. To me, it sounded a little too soccer. But as I keep going to games, I love the jerseys. I fall in
Yeah.
love with the team. I take a lot of pride in it. I love the team and I love everything about it. Before we talk about the team, talking about favorites, one of my favorite people, one of your favorite people,
Hmm.
and for all Utah hockey, our most successful Utah hockey player, I'm not talking about me. We all know that's not true. Trevor Lewis. Tonight is Wednesday. Trevor Lewis was scheduled. He's sitting at 999 games, and he was scheduled to play tonight against the Dallas Stars. I know people were trying to get out to the game and be there to celebrate for him, and he got hurt. He's not going to be playing tonight.
It's awful. That's awful.
Terrible. He's out for like a couple months.
That's awful, and especially for him. Like he's made a career out of being such like a glue guy and like a guy that plays every game, right? Like it's in the lineup and reliable. So like to happen at 999, that's crazy.
Played every game this season.
Yeah.
I know Utah Hockey Club talked about signing him, but they're like, what if we have to healthy scratch him? It'll be a distraction or whatever. Well, he's played every game this season till now, and he's not a healthy scratch. He's got
Yeah.
lower body injury, is what we're allowed to say. I spoke with Trevor today. He's pretty frustrated.
I can't even imagine. That's going to be like however long he is out. That's got to be the longest time of his life.
Yeah.
Just right on the edge.
999 games, and he's out for 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
It's just, and if you look at that LA Kings lineup, it seems like everybody's out 4 to 6 weeks. I was
Yeah.
looking at their short term IR and their long term IR. You look at like Dowdy and their goaltenders, and it's just a long list.
Yeah. Like it's the NHL season's a long 82 games, right? And stuff like this happens. So it's unfortunate, especially for Trevor, especially for us, because we know him and we're all so excited to see this happen. But it'll happen when it's supposed to happen. And hopefully he feels a little bit of that. But yeah.
Yeah, pretty tough break for him, and that's breaking news. So it's not the kind of breaking news I want to have. Like the only other time I've really jumped on the radio and been like, "Hey, I got breaking news," is when we traded for to get uh Sergey. So
Mm,
I thought that was a pretty to get Mikhail Sergachev and to have that be like a breaking news that I got to break to Utah as it was
yeah.
happening at the draft. That's the only time I've ever done it. I thought it was pretty cool.
That's a good one.
This was not as cool.
Yeah.
So tell me, you were at the game Monday night against Dallas,
Yep.
Dallas at Utah, and we lost.
Yeah.
But It was a 2-1 loss, but for me, I saw a lot of victories. I saw a lot of positive. Um, I have some audio from the coach, but I'm not going to be able to add it to this podcast. But he actually was pretty happy with things too. What was your take from the game? What did you think of the game?
I was super pleased with it. It's like I think last time we talked, the thing we harped on him was shots, and they had near 40 shots yesterday. I want to say it was 35 if I remember right. It seemed like they were getting to the net, like a lot of chances were happening at the net, which is huge, especially at this time of the year when the goals don't come as easy. Right, you got to kind of get in the dirty areas for them. I thought zone entries were good. Yeah, I was super happy with it. I thought there was a lot of positives, like rolled right off that Vegas game, like perfect. I mean, obviously you'd like to see him get a win, but you got to take the positives where you can find them.
Yeah, and I get beat up a little bit online when I talk about the fact that we're still in development and um we're a rebuild team, but the NHL is not a development league.
Yeah.
That's what the AHL is for. But we have players that are stepping up and they're learning. They're young. We're clearly an NHL team, but we have guys that are learning. And at the beginning of the year, I was a little hard on Cooley, and I think maybe I don't think I'm hard on anybody, but I expected more on Cooley, and
Mhm.
I expected more out of Schmaltzy as well. And now Schmaltz has 3 in the last 2.
Yeah.
Hopefully that gets the monkey off his back. Cooley is our like most nights seems to be our best player. What are your thoughts?
I agree. Actually, I was kind of like thinking in my head, like if you think of like, I don't want to say most improved because you guys are in the NHL, but if you were gonna say like maybe most improved, Cooley was like my number one guy just from like watching him in the beginning of the season where there was maybe a lot. I saw a lot of like blue line turnovers or maybe like an extra stick hand with the puck where a pass could be made to move it north or whatever. I see a lot of that being dwindled down, and then you see it in like his stats. Like he just, I don't think he got a point last night, but he was riding a 5 game point streak. Like it seemed like when they went back to Pittsburgh, Toronto, Montreal, he kind of took that next step, in my opinion. Um, so yeah, I think he's looked awesome as of late.
Yeah, and it looked like all 4 lines were doing what all 4 lines are supposed to do.
Yeah,
Carconi was out. We're pulling the goaltender. Obviously, line 1 was already on the ice, and Bear puts out Carconi, which I think surprised a lot of people. But if you saw like if you were paying attention to how the lines were creating last night,
yeah,
I think we're getting equal creative, like the creativity out of the team and creating chances and getting those dirty positions and shots. I think it's pretty equal, but I think that Carconi's line was just had a little something else last night, and I love to see it from a guy that I think he was a healthy scratch for 9 or maybe
yeah.
13 of the first few games.
He did. He didn't play a lot in the beginning, and I know he's in a contract year this year, so he's kind of in that prove it year kind of thing. And I thought the exact same thing. Last night he was flying around pretty good. He had a lot of chances that were inches away from. He had one in the first period for sure that just kind of trickled around the post, but he was flying around creating chances, and that's what I think goes a little bit unnoticed, just because like our top 6 forwards and top 2D get a lot of media attention, but like your third and fourth line, they don't necessarily always get the attention. And I know we kind of talked about it last week with Stenlin, but our fourth line is super crucial to the way that like when we have success, that line is really making a difference. And I thought that was the case for sure with in Vegas and last night.
And I think that's one of the things I harped on a little bit at the beginning of the season is with Stenlin, and again, fourth line, and Bear tries to match him up with first line quite a bit. And I think maybe the chemistry wasn't there at the beginning of the year, and now it seems to really be there.
Yeah,
And I know Stenlin had like I think he was -9 at one point, and it seems like now everything's starting to click. And I don't know if Utah fans, I know most the people that listen to this podcast get hockey, but I think people that are new to hockey don't understand why we're losing games, and they probably don't understand why it's so exciting to see not only what we saw against Vegas. You can and that's one game we're going to talk about. Up next on this episode is I get to talk to Jaxson Stauber. Pretty
mm.
crazy for him. First
Yeah,
game back in the NHL, comes out like because he played 6 games with Chicago 2 seasons ago. Spent all last season in the A. Gets called up and then gets to start. Usually, you're like, hey, you're going to play the Las Vegas Golden Knights, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm getting thrown into the meat grinder.
Yeah.
But to come out with a shutout and then to have all that happening and to see what the progress we saw last night, and all 3 penalties, by the way.
No,
And I thought one of them was a pretty soft call.
I agree.
And it is interesting to see that Skinner got fined for diving. The Edmonton Oiler Skinner got fined
I
for
saw that.
diving.
Yeah.
And that he dove it against us, which I think cost us a point in the standing. I think that's the equalizer. And but 3 penalties last night. One of them was questionable, and it actually ended up costing us the game. But
Yeah.
that's a lot less penalties than we've been taking. You see some
Yeah.
maturity coming out of the team now.
For sure. I do. Yeah. I know you kind of touched on the Edmonton game, but that's like just like we talked about, penalties was kind of killing us. And that Edmonton game was exactly what happened, right? I think they had 2 or 3 power play goals. And then you see like in Vegas it was less. Last night it was less. And it's just like the flow of the team, like everyone's so skilled and they're so fast and like they can create so much when they're able to just roll lines that when you're killing for 6 minutes a night and you can roll those 4 lines, it's like it's such a game changer to where they're killing 12 to 15 minutes to where there's no momentum gained. So it makes a huge difference. And yeah, maturity for sure. Um, like not a lot of after the whistle stuff. I don't know if you guys noticed that too.
I did
But I mean
notice um, there was a little bit, right? And
a
I was
little bit,
pretty
but that's gonna
impressed with
happen.
Bukestad and Kraus for standing up to Jamie Benn, he's a horrifying person on the ice. Like
Yeah.
he's a big boy. He's a little scary to play against. Kind of looks like your cousin Braden a little bit in the face.
That's probably a compliment to him.
Compliment to somebody. I don't know which one. But to see our guys kind of stand up to him, we're a small team.
Yeah.
And I was pretty impressed with overall, like, not a bunch of stuff after the whistle, like you're talking about, but they also, weren't being bullied around either.
Right, right. And I think that touches back on just like the chemistry and the brotherhood of the team. Because if you love each other and you're going to battle for each other, like you don't really put up with anyone's BS, right? It doesn't matter if you're Michelli, who's a smaller guy, or if you're Kraus, who's a bigger guy, right? Like everyone's kind of in the fight together, and I think that's a testament to that.
Yeah. Cooley at the end of the game, scrapping it up a
Yeah,
bit too.
yeah, for sure.
Um, it's just a sign of a lot of fight in these players, and I think there are so many good things coming. Um, and I just wanted to touch a little bit more on um, some of the fan reaction after the Edmonton game. We had a bunch of fans online, and maybe I should just stop reading comments. But they KSL tells me I'm supposed to get on and comment and be engaged with people that are commenting on the Utah Puck Report and on my stuff and on the Utah Hockey page. So I get on there and I see people comment and they say stuff like, "Last night was an embarrassment. We need to fire Bear." And I'm like, no, like for me, see if this is a good analogy. For me, we just planted a bunch of seeds. 2 or 3 years ago, Bill Armstrong started planting seeds and he's waiting for this garden to grow. And he's like, this garden's going to take 3 to 6 years. And to grow it, and you'll know this better. This is why I'm asking you to grow it. You got to bring in a guy, a gardener that knows how to nurture and develop and notice those fine mistakes that are the difference between being an AHL success and an NHL success and have a way to bring that out. And I think Bear is the perfect guy for that. The more I see of him in practice and the more I see what is on the ice, especially in the last couple of games, even the loss against Edmonton, I think Bear's the guy. And I can't see, like, then you just go, you get fans that are like, oh, we lost one, go out and torch the garden, start
Yeah.
getting out of the gardener. Like, wait, things are happening. Like, we're starting to see the roses and the flowers or whatever. The garden's starting to develop, and we've got the perfect gardener. But am I right? I mean, you
You're
played for Bear.
100%. You're 100% right. Yeah, and the reason I think he's perfect too is you got to think about we have the youngest team in the NHL, right? I'm pretty sure we were the youngest, if not one of them.
I
But
think we're third right now, just because of some roster changes. At the beginning of the season, we were the youngest.
okay, yeah, so we're on the younger end, right? And everyone, if you do pay attention to hockey, you hear the coaches saying that they have a hard time coaching the younger guys, right? Because the times are different. You got to kind of handle a little bit different. Well, he's been to Memorial Cups in the CHL, right? Oldest you can be in that league's 20, and then he makes his way up. But the reason I'm bringing this up is because he's been around younger guys, and he's he knows how to work around younger guys, and he's won Memorial Cups, and he's like won championships everywhere he's went with younger guys. So with us having a younger team, he fits the mold perfect because he knows how to work with the young guys, right? And that's what when you hear like older coaches talking in the NHL that's what they've had the hardest time doing is adjusting to the younger guys' game or like how to handle them or get the most out of them. So my 2 cents on it is like he's been around the younger guys making his way up to the NHL. And so to me, when you're coaching a younger team in the NHL, that seems to be how you'd want it to play out.
Yeah, that makes the most sense to me, and that's
Yeah,
why I brought it up. And I think you had a great experience playing for him, right? You
it
feel like
did.
he
Yeah,
your game.
for sure. Like one of the best. Like super detail oriented. Like anytime I needed to talk to him while he was there, he was an open book. Like always smiling. I loved it.
Yeah, he's been cool. I didn't know anything about him. I knew that you had played for him. I didn't know anything about him coming in. I didn't know anything about Bill Armstrong. From an outsider looking in, it just looked like Arizona was a team that was just trying to dump salaries at every possibility to stay low. And man, it's just like that whole Garden thing. They dump salaries and got draft pick after draft pick or after seed for your garden after seed for
Yeah.
your garden, and we're going to reap the benefits. I think we're going to see a change this year. I think we struggled, and I think we were maybe underrated. I noticed we're playing a lot of backup goalies, which means the other teams are like, all right, tonight's the night our backup goalie gets a game against easy
Yeah.
Utah.
Yeah. I noticed
I don't,
that too.
I don't think that's going to be the case moving
I
forward.
don't
I
either.
think Utah's sending a message right now that we're a playoff contender
Yeah.
and we're going to just keep getting better. And every kid we pull up just seems to be ready to perform.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Like I'm not 100% in touch with like what's going on in Tucson, but you're right. It's like they call a kid up and he fits in just fine. Like Stauber. I mean, the first ever shutout in any or in Utah Hockey Club history in his first game. Like that's a testament to like you're doing something right, you know?
Yeah. And he looked awesome. That's probably a great intro. Mason, I want to thank you so much for joining us. I want you to join us again next week. We'll have more video, we'll have more audio from the Utah Hockey Club. We're also next week, I think we're going to touch on what's going on with the Utah Grizzlies. I know they're struggling a little bit.
Mm,
And they shouldn't be. I know that Coach Ryan Kanaswich has built a really good team, but the problem is some of them are injured,
yeah.
and a lot of them are up playing for the Colorado Eagles right now. So that makes it tough down here. We're going to get into some college hockey as well, some ACHA college hockey, and talk about that. We're also going to talk about the Outliers and the Mustangs, and we're also going to touch on what's going on in Southern Utah. So are you going to join us next week for that?
If you'll have me, I'm in.
We love it, dude. You're like one of the most experienced guys we got around here, and everybody loves hearing from you. So we're always honored to have you on the little podcast here.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
All right,
Anytime, always.
here is our interview with Jaxson Stauber, Utah Hockey Club goaltender. It's exciting for me anytime I get to talk to another goalie. Really exciting when it's a goalie that just got pulled up from the A and comes in and just blows everybody's mind with a shutout. Jaxson Stauber, our guest today. Jaxson, thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me.
We've got a lot to talk about. I don't know how much time you got, so hopefully you got like 4 hours available for. You just got so much, man, and uh, just start out. Will you introduce yourself and tell us where you grew up and how you got? Well, we kind of know how you got into goaltending, but will you kind of talk us through the process?
Yeah, I grew up in Plymouth, Minnesota, which is about 20 minutes west of Minneapolis. So big hockey hotbed out in Minnesota. Yeah, obviously, like you alluded to, I got into goaltending. My dad was a goalie, played professionally and played with the LA Kings and Buffalo Sabres in the NHL as well. So I wasn't always into hockey growing up. Like I was in skating lessons when I was young, 4 or 5, and I didn't really enjoy that. This is always a funny story for me to tell, but I would do snow angels on the ice. And one day my dad got really upset and he just pulled me off and was like, "You're not doing this anymore." And I was like, "That's fine," like because I wasn't enjoying it. It wasn't until probably a few years later that I started to have interest in hockey again. My dad's from Duluth, Minnesota, so about 2.5 hours north of that Minneapolis area, and I had a lot of cousins that were playing that were just a year younger than me, and so they kind of got me back into the sport, and yeah, that's kind of how I started playing again.
So your dad was cool with just that's one of those weird things because I'm a goalie and my son was as he's growing up, I wanted him to be a hockey player. I wasn't sure that I wanted him to be a goalie, but I kept
Yeah.
introducing him. And the minute they put nets on the ice, he went right to the net and I was all happy. And then I kind of regretted it after because the pressure of being a goalie parent is way more than the pressure of being a goalie.
Yeah, I've heard my dad kind of you say that because when you're playing the position, you have some type of control. And I think as a parent, you don't have that, right? Like you can only sit there and watch and help it and do what you can. So I think it's a little bit more nerve wracking. I know talking to him about that. I mean, he says he's calm and cool and collected and whatnot, but I think on the inside he feels some of that. And I know my mom definitely feels some of that going through it, watching him play and then watching me play. I think it's yeah, she's had her fair share of that experience.
Yeah, my wife actually said that my daughter was a soccer goalie too. And my at one point my wife says, I'll never forgive you for what you've done to me by making me a goalie parent. She's like, I'm gonna have ulcers and my hair is gonna fall out. So as you're growing up, when did you decide like, hey, I want to be a goalie and I'm gonna take it serious? I want to, I want to play AAA, I want to play high school. Like, when did you
Yeah.
really click?
So I would like my first year playing out, or I think when I decided I want to play hockey again, I hadn't skated in, like I said, 4 or 5 years maybe. So I think it was 9 when I started back up, and I'd skated then twice before the tryouts. So you can imagine it was not very good. So I made like one of the lowest. We had like this was probably my second year of or my last year of like we call it mites. And so we had like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all those teams. And I think I was on the K team.
Oh
Oh,
man.
way down there. Um, and at that point, everyone kind of, you try goalie once. So I think I played maybe once or twice, and then I'd skated out a lot. And I know my mom, she wanted me to try player to not just revert to goalie since that's what my dad had done. And I don't remember him really pushing me to play goalie or anything, but that following season, there was a goalie shortage within our organization. And so they had kind of reached out to some people and asked if, you'd be interested in playing goalie and whatnot. And I remember my mom asked me if I wanted to do it. I was like, yeah, like I'll play. So I played half goalie, half skater that season, which would have been my first year of squirts. And then the second year of squirts, I transitioned to full time goalie. And I don't really remember um, necessarily like the moment where I was like, oh, I want to be a goalie, but it just kind of felt natural to me. I know my parents joke that when I'd be skating up the ice, I'd be playing defense, looking behind me, making sure there was no one back there. So that's kind of that goalie mindset.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. And that seems like that maybe the time that you played forward, the way you play goaltending with playing the puck and being super aggressive, seems like maybe some of that stuck with you as you progress as a goaltender.
Yeah, that was something that my dad was big on. That was a big part of his game when he played. So that was something that even when I transitioned to goalie, we stressed a lot of skating, like obviously goalie movement drills, but skating like a player, doing crossovers and cross unders and puck handling, just because he felt those were such valuable assets. And so that's something that I've always kept on doing and kept working on, and I think it's a part of my game as well.
I've always kind of wondered about well, first off, do you remember seeing your dad play pro? Were
No,
you
he retired before I was born.
okay?
So
That's I was wondering that.
yeah.
Because I was like, your dad was basically retired when I started playing. I remember him playing in the Wayne Gretzky era with the Kings. That had to
Hmm.
be amazing.
Yeah.
I was gonna look it up. I should have looked it up beforehand, but was he the other goalie for Buffalo when Malarchuk got cut? Do you know?
No. So he was just there. He was there a short time. He was there with Hashik.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. All right.
So that was a tough goalie partner to have in terms of if you want to play a lot.
Yeah. Geez, Dominic Hasek. Like, it's funny. That's another thing too, right? Like, I've watched. I was with Jordan Parisi as he was growing up, and knowing that he was going to be an NHL goalie, or at least really thinking he was going to be, and then he ends up in the New Jersey Devils system. Well, you're not going to get time behind Brodeur, who
Yeah.
decided to try to break every record, and then he got traded to Pittsburgh. And we're like, well, now you're behind the Flower, and then his last shot was with the Rangers behind Hank, and you're like, it's just not going to happen, bud. Sorry.
Yeah, that's just a couple tough bounces there for sure.
So for your dad to be behind Hasek, that's crazy. Okay, so but now your dad's trying to coach you as a goalie, and goaltending was 100% different as far as
Mhm.
the movement. So was your dad like your goalie coach, or did he reach for outside help? Because your dad probably didn't know how to butterfly slide or any of that down movement that you guys are so good at now.
Yeah, my first pair of goalie, just side note, my first pair of goalie pads were John Brown's. And so they were rounded. So when you butterflied, a lot of times you'd fall in the face. They weren't flat like they are now. So
Yeah.
did a lot of 5-hole snaps, which those are really good for. And they were great for skating and puck handling because they weren't meant to slide and stuff. So, yeah, he was my goalie coach growing up. Like, he has a goalie training center back in Minnesota. And so there's other coaches there, and they would coach me as well. So I kind of got a variety of different coaching there. But I think back when I, started playing was 2009, 2010. Like, that was always the biggest thing was not like you can learn how to butterfly slide. I think it's a skill that a lot of kids learn at a young age now. But he was really, like I said, stress those fundamentals and skating and stick handling and being able to move on your feet, make saves on your feet too, not just revert to dropping. So those were skills that he definitely taught me growing up. I think as I got older, like it's not like it was definitely different because that style of play, like you're mentioning, was so much different back when he played, but he still was knowledgeable enough for the game where he could teach me how to do that stuff as well. So I would say he coached me for a good chunk. And even now and then, every once in a while in the summer, not often, but we'll get on the ice together.
He's still got a pointer or two for you now. That's
Yeah.
good. That's a dad, right? That dad's gonna have a thing to say. Um,
No.
Talk to us a little bit about because you had it. You started juniors and then you went to college and then you went back to juniors and then you went to a different college. What was going on there, and what kind of was the mindset behind where you were going back and forth?
Yeah. So yeah, I played junior hockey in Sioux Falls in the USHL, which was a great place to play. Great fans. Um, Great coach too. Scott Owens was my coach. He's a former goalie, coached at CC for a long time. And when I went into college, I was hoping to get an opportunity to play, and that was at Minnesota State. And the year before, Dryden McKay, who ended up winning the Hobie Baker a few years after I was there, he had a good freshman year. Um, and that first maybe 10 games, I think I played one. And so and he was playing really well too, like super, super well. So I kind of see that, I probably wasn't going to get much of an opportunity there. And just felt like I still had that junior eligibility. So felt like it was best for me to go back and, then try and find another college to go to. So, yeah, that was tough. It's never easy to do that, to make that decision, but I just felt that was best for my career. And then connecting with Providence was just about, they had an opportunity there, and I just felt that was a place where I could play and develop. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's gutsy, and I'm going to talk to you more about that too, because you know you're in juniors and there's opportunities, and you got to kind of look at what. All right, this goalie's probably going to play, or this goalie was better in juniors, or it's kind of hard to figure out. Like for me, I just took whatever offer I got. It's not like I had a ton, and then but then you see guys that really struggle with all these offers, or I got to watch my kids go through it. You're like, okay, this school offers this degree, and I'm like, well, that should be your focus. But for hockey players, it's not. It's like, hey, what's my best path to the NHL? And
Yeah, I think both my parents and especially my mom always stressed education growing up, and like that was always a priority. It wasn't like sports came second, and so school was important. And so it was important for me to uh, pick a school that I was gonna, complete my degree at, and felt like there was something to offer there. But obviously, the goal was to play professionally after, so I was thinking about that as well. I'm actually in my last college class to graduate right now, so it should be done in a couple weeks.
oh, nice. So the degree will be from Providence.
Yep.
And what's the degree going to be in?
So I was marketing when I was at the school, and then I had to switch to a different program after I wasn't a day student anymore. So it's called Oh, it's called something funny now. I don't even remember. Yeah, I'm blanking now on the name, but it's essentially a more of a general business degree.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we're proud that you're carrying through it. So after college, now you're looking to go pro. You're undrafted. What kind of looks were you getting? What were the options then?
Yeah, I mean, after my, there were some teams that were interested that I maybe talked to a little bit, but Chicago was the one that had kept in touch with me for a while. I think it was after my sophomore year at Providence, they first kind of connected with me, and they kept in touch throughout that junior season, so I knew they were interested and that they were going to be, there was potentially going to be an option there at the end of the season, and that was kind of the biggest one. I think other teams maybe. Didn't have that need at that time or wanted to see me go back and play more. But Chicago, that contract offer was on the table, and I just felt that it was a good opportunity for me. Something that, if you go back, I knew at least with that team, it wasn't going to be there the following year. And it was a chance that I thought I could maybe get into the American League right away. So those were kind of some of those determining factors. I definitely think I could have benefited from another year of college as well, but I just felt that that opportunity was kind of too good to pass up. And yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. Like, sorry, mom, I know you want me to graduate, but there's the Chicago Blackhawks have offered me a deal. You got to, like, how do you pass that up? There's no way.
Yeah, and that was something like I knew, and like I had talked about earlier, my mom would always stress school, so that was something that I definitely took pride and priority in, and I knew that I was gonna finish. I didn't know, if it was gonna take me 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years, but I knew I was gonna get it done. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. So, uh, at what point do you get the shutout in the goal?
At what point do I get the shutout in the goal?
Yeah, didn't you have a shutout in
Oh
a goal?
yeah, yeah.
That's in
So
the
that
A,
was,
right?
yeah, that was last season in February.
And was it just like everything was clicking? How many shutouts had you had professionally up to that point?
That was my first one.
I wonder because I got to tell you, when I was here, I was e-bugging for the Utah Grizzlies when we were in the AHL, and
Hmm.
we had 3 first round draft pick goalies come that year, and they're like, I don't know what we're gonna do, and they sent one of them down. I don't know if they just picked at random because they were all just drafted first round that year, and they sent this guy named Mike Smith down to the East Coast League, and he got a shutout and a goal, and then they immediately recalled him. They're like, okay, that's a pretty good sign that he probably belongs in the A. But what was that game like mentally, and what was going on in your head?
Yeah, I think at that point it was just after the All-Star break. And when we came back, like we had kind of been an up and down team, struggling to find some consistency. And, we had started playing better after that All-Star break. And so I think the team was playing really well, which always helps to contribute. And it was a 3-0 game at that point, and they had pulled a goal. There was maybe a minute left. And as the puck was coming around the boards, right when it got to like the goal line, I just thought to myself that I'm gonna turn and fire it up ice. So without really even looking, because I felt like if I took too long, the opportunity would be gone. I just got it, quick turn and shot it without even looking. So yeah, it was a fun night. Something I'll definitely remember for the rest of my life.
Where's like that's amazing. Is that something you worked on a lot? We talked about that your dad always taught you stick handling, but is it like picking up that rim and firing down the other net? Is that something you worked on?
I don't think we practiced that scenario necessarily, goal scoring, but yeah, I think that situation is like you work on getting the pucks if there's pressure on hard rimming or around the glass and getting good leverage on it. So I think that's the same type of concept. So it's something that you work on for sure, not necessarily the goal scoring, but making sure you can get the puck elevated quickly if you need to.
Yeah, that's amazing. What an amazing story. That's so cool. And like before we even signed you this year, I'd seen that play last year, and I was just so impressed. And then when I saw we signed you, I was like, that's exciting. I was really hoping to get I, it was fun to watch you like at Dev Camp, and I was pretty pumped. You've got a really cool story. Tell us a little bit about how you ended up with Utah.
Yeah. at the end of the year, I wasn't really sure whether or not Chicago was. I was a restricted free agent, so I wasn't sure if they were going to offer me or not. And then eventually ended up learning that they weren't going to offer me. They're going to go a different direction. And so then free agency comes around, and that first day, there's lots of goalies going off the board. And as you know, it's a selective position. There's only so many spots and so many teams. Not every team needs a goalie each year, right? So it was stressful for sure. But Utah was one of the teams that were interested, and they were the only ones to really offer me a contract. So I was eager to take it, and looking forward to the opportunity to continue to grow my game. And yeah.
So what are you thinking? Like, first off, I thought you had more offers than that. I thought Utah was just one of many, but are you looking at Utah like, all right, there's some possibility here. It's a brand new organization. Who knows what things are going to change? Or are you thinking like I got a legit shot of getting into the show, or are you still thinking that, hey?
I mean, at that point, yeah, I was thinking of just finding a job, in the American League, somewhere where I could, hopefully continue to improve and work my way up to the NHL. I didn't know exactly. I know that Matty was going to be with the organization as well, and he had a really strong year. And obviously, Ingram and Vamelka were still signed. So yeah, I was just kind of looking for, a spot that basically 4 spot on the depth chart, and just kind of go from there and work my way up. So that was kind of at that point I was looking for pretty much anything.
When now you're signed and it's time to pick gear. Let's start with the mask.
Yeah.
I saw there's some Olympic stuff on your mask. What else is on your mask?
Just kind of different Utah Hockey Club logos. There wasn't obviously a lot to go off of. I think there's the one on your shirt, and the one on your hat too. So there's
it's the 2 logos. Yeah.
Yeah, basically the logos is kind of what it is. Yeah. So the guy that paints my mask has done quite a few of them now, and he kind of had come up with the idea for the Winter Olympics as an ode to obviously Salt Lake, but Team USA's goalie in the '02 Olympics was Mike Richter. So we kind of based the mask off that with like his different Rangers logos and stuff. Okay. So it was kind of a combination, but yeah, he's always really good at coming up with cool concepts. So I just kind of
who paints your mask?
The company's called Helmet Head, and his name's John. So he's out of Omaha, Nebraska. He does. Okay. I when I was playing junior hockey in Sioux Falls, they just were like, "Hey, this is the guy that paints your mask." I'm like, "Okay." And then nice. When I got to pro, they're like, "Hey, do you have anyone that paints your masks or that you like?" And I go, "Well, John's done some of mine, and I like them." So yeah, perfect. For the past couple of seasons.
So it wasn't that you were a huge Mike Richter fan. It was just kind of it all just worked out to be Salt Lake.
Yeah, well, I actually was a huge Rangers fan growing up, believe it or not. So I think I watched this Mark Messier movie back from when he came to New York and they won the Cup in '94, and obviously Richter was a goalie. I think I watched that 100 times as a kid. So, but I was a huge Lundqvist fan as well. So yeah, I was a big Rangers fan, which is part of it as well.
Oh, that's very cool. Yeah, I remember trying to get some peeks at your mask in the beginning, and I was kind of the Olympic logo was pretty cool, and I was like, that's a cool tribute. I didn't know if young goalies, like, I didn't know if that was a throwback to 2002 or if that was we're getting it again, so it could be both. Right?
Yeah,
I'll tell you, as a lifelong goalie and a bigger goalie fan, being here during the 2002 and watching Richter in real life was just amazing.
Yeah.
And I still feel like Canada cheated a little bit with the loonie. Have you heard about that? They put a loonie under the ice at center ice at the Maverick Center.
No, I didn't hear that.
At the very beginning, one of the guys that they hired to take care of the ice for the Olympics was a Canadian, and him and some of the Team Canada guys dug up in the middle of the ice, and they put a loonie at the face-off dot where the gold medal game was held. And then they dug it up after. It's a big thing, but yeah, it's cool. And all those guys, both teams, Canada, Russia, US, there's all those autographs on the walls at the Maverick Center. You'll have to go check that out while you're here.
Oh, very cool.
It's so cool. And not a lot of people know about it. It's in the back, but we'll make sure you get a look at it.
Sounds good.
Have you always been a Vaughn guy?
Well, like I said, I wore Browns for a few years growing up, and
Yeah.
then I think I was Vaughn for a while, and then when I got to junior, maybe or just before, I'm not sure. I wore CCMs for a while. That was back when Trues weren't around, and then ended up switching back at some point. I think second year junior to Vaughn, have been with them since. So yeah, it's I'd say for most of my life, been a Vaughn guy.
You looking to change up the colors at all on your pads now that you're up looking for some?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I got a little blue there on. You probably can't see it. It's on the logo, the V10 logo on the side. There's just a little bit of baby blue in there, so we got a little bit.
I believe we call it mountain blue. I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah,
I could be
mountain blue. Thank you. Yes.
wrong. Very cool. All right, so take us to the call up. When did you find out? What was going through your head?
Yeah, I had my phone on sleep mode. I was just about to go to bed, and then I see two missed calls from this number that I didn't have, and it was one of those verified ones, so it wasn't like a spam. And my wife and I were sitting in bed. I'm like, hi, I'm gonna call this number back, even though I normally don't do that. And it was David Ludwig, and he just said that they were calling me up and that I'd be in a flight to meet the team in Boston the next day. So it was exciting. I got out of bed and packed up and kind of got ready to go.
Wow. And you'd had 7 games, right? You'd played 7 NHL games already.
Six.
6. But it's still gotta be nerve-wracking. Like you just got pulled up to a new team and you look at the schedule, at least I know as an e-bug or whatever, I look at the schedule, I'm like, okay, here's the potential. There's a back to back or there's something. Is that
Mm-hmm.
were you starting to look right then? Like I might play this back to back?
I knew that like because when David had called me, he just said, we're going on the road for a week. So I didn't know what the situation was, if someone was hurt or anything like that. I just knew there was a road trip for a week. So I kind of looked at the schedule more so for packing purposes than anything else of what I needed to bring. Um, and yeah, once you get there, there's always kind of those nerves. It had been, I had spent all last year in Rockford, so it'd been a while since I gotten a call up to the NHL. So yeah, there was some nerves kind of that first day when I got there. We had practice the next day, which was good to kind of get on the ice a little bit with the guys, and kind of settle in. So yeah, there was definitely some nerves, lots of excitement, and just like I said, grateful to be there.
Yeah, and it's cool. Veggie's playing well, so you're like, okay, now I could get some more morning skates or get caught up a little bit because it does take. Like, I don't think people understand the difference of an NHL shot to an AHL shot. I just think there's more patience. I think the shots are harder, they're faster, but they're smarter with their shots.
Yeah, absolutely. I think guys can, especially like in game situations, right? Like they can get shots, really high quality shots off in areas that you don't maybe think they can do it, and they're really skilled and they're able to kind of, have those quick releases. And some guys have those heavy shots too, and they're able to put those pucks, especially when they have time and space, like they can pick you apart. So, yeah, there's definitely a difference. Obviously, there's a lot of really good players in the American League as well, but there is that difference from the NHL to the AHL for sure.
Yeah. When did you find out you were going to get the start in Vegas?
We were on the plane after the game, and Corey Schwab, the goalie coach, came up and said that that Bear wanted to talk to me. So just kind of went up, sat and talked with him for a little bit, and at the end of the conversation, he just told me that I was going tomorrow. So it was probably 11:30 at night, the night before.
Wow. Is it better to find out a day or two before, or would you rather like even in the morning just be like, hey, you're going? So there's less anxiety?
I definitely like the day before. I think when I found out I was playing my first game, it was like 2 days before. So we had played, or I'll never forget it. We were getting off the bus. We had played in Philadelphia. We had a day off, and then we were playing St. Louis. So this was a Thursday night, and Jimmy Wade, the goalie coach in Chicago, came up to me and told me that he just said, "Hey, you got next game." So I kind of had like two sleeps basically, and that first one was tough, but I was glad I found out at that time, because that's night before the game. Then I could kind of settle my nerves a little bit and was able to sleep well. So I prefer to know like the earlier the better for sure. But in that situation, like I knew it was back to back. I knew, sometimes if it's a little bit more consistent, I'm sure like they would have told you, hey, Veggie's going this day, you're going the next game or something. But like you said, Veggie was playing well. Obviously, I hadn't played the NHL in a long time, so I think that it was just going to be more of a game time decision. So yeah.
And a lot of times, well, and Veggie was kind of victim to it at first. We were starting Ingram on all the games, and it seemed like when there was a back to back or when it was Veggie's turn, we were feeding him to the wolves because it was always against the top teams. And then they're like, "Hey, you're going up against Vegas, who's known as, they're new, but they've been dominant since they've been in the league." Does that run through your head at all? Or are you like, I need to prepare for Stone, or, you know, obviously he's not on the roster right now, but do
Yeah.
you start thinking through the players, or do you just have like my game's prep is my game prep no matter who I'm playing?
Yeah, so I think kind of a couple days before, like, because I knew there was a possibility I'd be playing that game, so kind of did a little research of my own, and picked out some key players, guys like Eichel, Barbashev, Petrangelo, seeing kind of trying to find any tendencies that you can pick up, maybe what they like to do, and we have our own pre-scouts too that we do the day before, but for me is getting as much information on maybe some of those guys in that team as I can, just to be prepared mentally for the situations that you might see. Um, and yeah, I think initially it kind of it pops into your head that that's a good team. And I played in preseason there and kind of got shelled a little bit. So that pops into your head too. But at the end of the day, like, you can't control the other team. You're the officials. How your team's going to respond. All you control is yourself. So I just told myself I'm going to focus on my preparation, my mindset, and what I want to do in the game. And that's all I can control. So that's what I was going to focus on.
Yeah, that's amazing. One of the things that I was taught early on, it made a lot of difference to me. Is I remember JP Parisi telling me that superstitions are one thing, but why would you let anything else contribute to controlling your game mentally?
Yeah.
Like, especially for goalies who are so mental anyway. Like, it's such a mental game, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you just gotta focus on what you can focus on. And he even told me like not to have too many pregame rituals.
Yeah.
Sometimes the bus is gonna be late, or that restaurant's not open, or they don't sell that candy bar, or whatever it is. So yeah, that's interesting. So as the game's cooking along, you get your first couple saves, but all of a sudden we've got run support. Does that change your approach to the game, or what's going on in your head?
Yeah, no, that doesn't change my approach at all. It's, if anything, it makes you kind of bear down a little bit more because you don't want to allow that team back in the game. And you've seen it, like, team gets one, maybe two, and then they kind of start rolling. So I think for me is once we got that 3-0 lead, I was in my mind, I'm like, okay, like, not tonight. Like, they're not going to get four tonight. That's kind of the mindset of like, and obviously your mind tends to want to go to the end of the game. But I think what I did really well that game was just allowing myself to be in the moment and focusing on where I was. And that just helped me to stay connected and stay grounded in that moment and not get too far ahead.
You start thinking about taking that shot if they pull the goaltender.
Yeah. That would have been something.
That would have been something. Luckily, we got up enough that I don't think they were worried about it. Were you
Yeah.
surprised that they left Samsonov in so long? Like that they just left him in?
I wasn't really thinking about it. I mean, looking back now, like, yeah, I mean, I've been in that situation too, where it's like, and once it probably goes 6-0 there, he knows he's not coming out of the game. So it's like, it's a mental battle because like, he probably wasn't feeling his best that night. At that point, the guys maybe aren't playing their best. So it's a battle. And I think it's, for me, like, when I'm in those situations, like, you got to have a little bit of pride, right? And I think, he, after it was 6-0, it was more than half the game left. So he did a good job of, sticking with it and finishing that game strong, because sometimes those things can get really, really ugly.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things. Just, you've seen NHL goalies in the past blow up about that. And, most notably Patrick Waugh. But there's also like, there's some guys that are just like, you know what? This is my mess. Leave me in. Especially if you're the backup. You're like, the other
Yeah.
guy's supposed to be getting a rest tonight. I'm just gonna take it. Like, and it's not gonna hurt my pride. It's not gonna hurt my relationship with the team. I'm gonna keep battling and doing the best I can.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the mindset you got to take, is like, you just keep playing the game, and you never know what can happen. I know there's been times where, we've been down 3-0 a game, and it's like, okay, this thing could get out of hand quickly, but you just got to do your job, and you can't worry about the other guys. And then, before you know it, maybe it's 3-3, and you come back and you win the game, and it's like, wow, like being able to stick with it is a huge thing. And yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate. I know you guys got the day off today. We were going to meet after practice, and I thought this might not happen. So I appreciate you taking the time. And just before I let you go, tell us what it was like in the locker room after your shutout, after you go into the locker room and you hadn't played in the NHL for a while, and that's got to be so many things going on. Like, was your dad there?
Yeah, actually, both my parents flew in, so I didn't. My wife drove up she was in Tucson, so she drove up about 6 hours to Vegas, and both my parents flew in. So honestly, it was just so much joy and gratitude to have that opportunity, and I just wanted to, soak it in, and also get out there to see them quickly. The guys wanted to get out of there pretty quick, so I made sure to kind of get undressed and be able to go see them for a few minutes as well, and kind of share that moment with them.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, we just hope that's one of many amazing moments for you and the Utah Hockey Club. And hope to see some more Mountain Blue in those pods pretty soon.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah.
I might be a little like I called Brian's right away and I'm like, hey, I think I might be e-bugging. I need all blue.
That's a cool idea. I like that. All Mountain Blue.
Call Vaughn. Let's get this going.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell Utah about you before we let you go?
No, I don't think so.
All right, man. Well, that's Jaxson Stauber, a goaltender for the Utah Hockey Club. And man, welcome to the team.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of the Utah Puck Report. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Rate us, leave us feedback, let us know what you want us to do better. Big thanks to our sponsors, Only Crowns. Love having a dentist sponsor for the hockey podcast. Check them out at onlycrowns.com. Thanks to KSL Sports, the Utah Hockey Club, Madison Miller, and Tegan Stevens for producing. And thanks to the American Hitmen for that awesome intro song. We'll see you next week.